Everyone joins trends for one of two reasons: to belong or to be seen. But there's a third type of person, and they're rare. They don't join trends, not because they're different, but because their brain never asks the social question in the first place. And that difference quietly shapes how they move through the world. Two types of people who skip trends, and only one is real. Before we go deeper, we need to split this into two completely different psychological profiles, because not everyone who avoids trends is doing it for the same reason. First, there's the contrarian. This person's entire identity is built on opposition. Show them something popular and watch their face. They'll immediately find reasons it's terrible, overrated, for sheep. Their Instagram bio probably says something about not following the crowd. Here's the tell: their choices are still controlled by trends. They're just controlled backwards. If everyone started hating the thing they hate, they'd suddenly defend it. They're not independent, they're reactive. Psychologists call this counterconformity, and studies show it activates the same social comparison circuits as regular conformity. They're still playing the game, just on hard mode. Then there's the authentic non-participant. They're not against trends. They literally don't register them as significant. The social weight of something being popular doesn't factor into their decision. Research in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found these individuals score extremely low on public self-consciousness. While most people constantly ask, "How do I look to others?" their brain doesn't run that program. The neuroscience of not giving a damn. Here's where it gets fascinating. For most people, thinking about what others think activates the medial prefrontal cortex. But for low self-monitors, this activation is significantly weaker. They genuinely process "everyone's doing it" as neutral information with no emotional charge. There's also evidence this connects to the DRD4-7R gene variant, present in about 20% of humans, associated with novelty-seeking and resistance to social conformity. These were the people who left safety to explore beyond the horizon. When the popular water source dried up, they already knew where the backup was. The identity equation. Where does your self-worth come from? Psychologist Dr. Jennifer Crocker's research on contingent self-worth reveals something crucial. Most people's self-esteem is contingent on external factors: appearance, approval, achievement, fitting in. For these individuals, participating in trends serves a psychological function. It's social currency. It creates belonging. It proves you're in the loop, relevant, connected. But trend resistors typically have what's called non-contingent self-worth. Their sense of self isn't dependent on external validation. They've built their identity around internal values, personal interests, individual principles. A trend isn't an opportunity to connect. It's just background noise to something they've already decided matters to them. This shows up in how they spend their attention. Following a trend requires real cognitive investment. You have to learn the context, form an opinion, participate, maintain awareness of how it's evolving. For someone whose self-worth isn't tied to social participation, this feels like a terrible use of limited mental energy. They're not being antisocial, they're being selective. They've unconsciously calculated that the social benefit doesn't outweigh the cost to their focus. And research backs this up. A Stanford study on attention allocation found that people with strong internal locus of control spend significantly less time on socially driven activities and more time on personally meaningful pursuits. Psychological reactance. The allergy to being told what to do. There's another mechanism at play called psychological reactance, first identified by psychologist Jack Brame in 1966. It's the reason you want to stay up late the moment someone tells you to go to bed. When people perceive their freedom as being threatened, even by something harmless like, "Hey, try this app everyone's using," their brain triggers a defensive response. For high reactance individuals, the mere fact that something is everywhere makes it feel like pressure, and pressure creates resistance. A 2018 study from the University of Pennsylvania found that people high in trait reactance showed increased activity in the anterior cingulate cortex when exposed to persuasive messages. This is the part of your brain involved in conflict monitoring. Their brain literally experiences popular recommendations as a form of cognitive threat. This explains why telling a trend resistor, "but everyone loves it," is the worst possible pitch. You just activated their psychological immune system. The more you emphasize its popularity, the more their brain codes it as something trying to control them. The social cost. Here's the trade-off. People who ignore trends often report higher satisfaction with their choices. They don't feel FOMO, not because they've mastered it, but because they genuinely don't have it. Their decisions feel intentional, own, theirs. But humans evolved in tribes of 150 people where shared experiences created bonds. Trends, Annoying as they might be, create cultural moments. When everyone's talking about that thing and you're not, you're on the outside of a conversation. And that isolation is real. Social connection researcher Dr. Julianne Holt-Lundstad's work shows that social isolation has health impacts equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That's why psychology points to a middle ground. Selective participation. Join what genuinely interests you. Skip what doesn't, regardless of popularity. The hard question: are you truly independent or just performing independence? Here's the uncomfortable test. If the thing you're refusing to do suddenly became unpopular, would you still refuse it? If Taylor Swift suddenly became uncool, would you allow yourself to like her music? If the viral challenge lost all social currency, would you still skip it? If your answer changes based on what's popular, you're not operating independently. You're still controlled by social dynamics, just in reverse. True independence means liking Crocs because they're comfortable, not because they're trending or not trending. Psychologist Dr. Susan Fisk's research on social cognition suggests that genuine autonomy is rare. Most of us exist on a spectrum between conformity and counterconformity. True independence, people who evaluate things purely on personal merit regardless of social context, represent maybe 15 to 20% of the population. And even they're not immune to influence. They just process it differently. The difference is awareness. They know when they're being influenced. They choose whether to accept or reject that influence consciously, not reactively. What this actually means is simple. People who never join trends aren't smarter or boring. They're just wired differently. Some brains track social signals closely. Others follow internal curiosity and values. Neither is superior. The problem only begins when either side judges the other. The real question is whether you're aware of your own choices. If this made you think, drop a comment about the last trend you skipped and why. And if you want more psychology about yourself, subscribe.